Something as simple as do not write on any barcodes, right? It's just simple stuff. Things like, I know somebody will ask me this question. If additional space is needed, you should use the lined pages at the end of this booklet. The question number or numbers must be clearly shown. So they're answering that question on the cover sheet. Okay, so I know once you've read it, you're like, haha, maine pad liya. But they may have new information here. You never know. So just, it'll take you what, half a second to read it? Read your cover sheets. Now, what you do know is that the entire paper is for 2 hours. And the paper is basically divided into, let me try putting in a text box. Yeah. So the paper, the duration is 2 hours. Whereas you have 3 questions. So basically you have an overall 3 questions. Sorry, I'm just trying to get this somewhere here. You have 3 questions. Now, each of the questions has multiple parts. But if you just look at the overall division, this means you need to have 40 minutes, right, per question. This is a general rule. Do not spend less than 40 minutes on each question. I know some of you are fantastic at some things and you may be faster or slower, whatever, but you need to remember 40 minutes per question. So how do we divide these kind of minutes per question? Let's look at question 1. Now, question 1 has 6 parts. Parts A till E, these are just comprehension questions, implicit, explicit questions. Whereas part F is your summary question. All right. These questions in total make 15 marks. So parts 1A till E are 15 marks. But the summary is also 15 marks. So how do you divide your time? The summary is also 15 marks, right? How do you divide your time? I'm just going to go, we can't divide equally. Why? Because the summary should take you more than 20 minutes, all right? This question is the hardest to manage in terms of time because you have 2 texts and then you have to kind of take information out of 2 texts and sort of, write down your answers. One tip I can give you is, as soon as you get the question paper, leave the insert alone. All you need to remember is text A. Question 1, part A till E, text A. Make sure you're reading the right text for the right questions. Read the questions. At this point, underline what you think is the most important thing in these questions. Read your questions clearly. Do not fly through this process. So we ignore everything and we think about, okay, so now just by reading the passage, what happens? You understand that it's about early history of flying, yes, well, the name of the passage told us this, but it actually gives you a clear idea about what sort, like early means early, how early, right? The sort of words you will have in the passage. And it gives you some sort of, idea about what to expect in the passage, which makes the reading of the passage easy. After you've read the questions, go to text A, read it. It's not a very long text, but don't speed read. You're going to read it in the speed that I'm reading it right now. So you'll read with, the ability to fly has always fascinated humans. Stories of people attempting to fly can be found in many ancient cultures. However, past human attempts to range freely in the skies have often had bumpy consequences. Stop, think. First paragraph talks about really early ancient cultures and bumpy consequences. They're not very happy about flying. In Greek mythology, there is a legend of Daedalus and Icarus, The father and son who created wings by combining feathers and wax to escape from imprisonment in Crete. So this is the speed you read at. Do not read faster. Stop after each paragraph. Okay, this is the one about the Greek mythology. This is the one about Da Vinci, and so on and so forth. We go back to the question paper. First question is in paragraph 1. How have humans always felt about the ability to fly? You can easily go back. Paragraph 1, you already thought about it, so you already know that flying wasn't very safe, and past human attempts to range freely in the skies have often had bumpy consequences, but the ability to fly has always fascinated humans. So where's your question? Where's your answer? Felt. Keyword felt. So what is the answer? They were fascinated. That's it. Write short answers. I know they have given you 2 lines. This does not mean they want you to write complete answers. Please do not, under any circumstances, you know, write complete answers. Over here, let me show you. If you look at the marking scheme, the key word that they are giving you marks for, if you look at it, they've literally just written the singular word. How did they feel about it? They felt absolutely amazed. Wonderful. Now, all of these answers will be marked correct, but why waste time thinking about it? The actual idea is in the text. So just write it, pick it up from the text. It literally says it over here. It's an explicit meaning question. Now, Mariam, you've asked a question. Would you recommend reading the passage, then reading the questions, then skimming through the passage to answer the questions, or would you recommend reading the questions and then read the passage and answer the questions? Mariam, I always suggest reading the questions first. You don't have time. I'm asking you to do this within 15 minutes, right? So the time I'm allotting for question 1 is 15 minutes max, right? These are easier questions, so read the questions first. And then as you're reading, do read the passage fully. Some students of mine don't read this passage fully because they say, Miss, you are already given specific line numbers. You don't need to read the passage fully. There's no complete questions asking you to kind of, answer from the passage. So that's fine as well. They do particularly well, so that's fine. But please read the question first because you don't have time to go back and forth. The next questions are these using your own words questions. Remember, they've given you 2 words. Replace both of them. Otherwise, you will not get your 2 marks. And the problem is, if you lose out on these 2 marks, then you're, losing out very easy marks. Because later on in the paper, you will lose marks with the chunkier pieces of writing. Questions would ask you to give 2 reasons. These are explicit meaning questions. You just have to find 2 reasons why humans created wings for themselves. Go to that part about the Greek mythology. It's told you specific paragraphs, 2. And you think about they created wing-like garments. Why? Because they wanted to escape from the tower, escape from imprisonment, right? What's the second story here? Sorry, what's the second reason here? So we've got 2 reasons why some humans created wings for themselves. First is escaping from imprisonment. Can somebody else find me the second reason? Can you? Is it obvious anywhere here? No one? No? Okay. Everyone's worried. It was a simple question. It said it over here. They were trying to figure out what enabled them to fly. So it's giving you 2 reasons. Oh, sorry, Bisma. I apologize. Maybe I should wait more. Okay, so I'm going to ask you guys to do another question. Identify 2 ways in which Da Vinci's flying machines were designed to work. So you have to identify 2 points. Again, if you look at it, they've given you 2 bullet points in which Da Vinci's flying machines were designed to work. So they should work. So we're looking at Da Vinci's machines. Sorry. This is in paragraph 3 and 4, right? But if you look at it, there are 2 parts to the question. So read paragraphs 3 and 4. This is paragraph 3, this one. This is paragraph 4.
Is it me or can you guys hear Miss Bushra?
No, I've paused. I'm asking them to write the answers in the
Right.
chat or raise their hand so we can unmute them and then they can tell us the answer. Come on, come on, come on, come on. Where's Fajr? Fajr, raise your hand, bacha. Where is this girl?
I think they're like taking their time to read as well.
Fajr, come on, I'm unmuting you. Okay, so Mariam has said paragraph 3, last 2 sentences. So you're saying because they employ arms and operate these wings, but are you also saying this part? So flapping wings and operated by one person. Okay, I think Mariam, essentially you were correct. So this is how you find your answers. All right. And this is very, very important. Go to the right place and answer the question accordingly. Don't read ahead. Think about it. Now, in questions like these, when they give you a group of questions, now this is a general tip. I may be wrong, but this is a general tip that I can give you. For example, there's 2 parts to this question, D1 and D2, and they've given you 2 paragraphs. Usually, the first part is from paragraph 3, and the second part will be from paragraph 4. Okay? So in questions where there are 2 parts and 2 paragraphs given, the first part is usually from the first paragraph and the second part is usually from the second paragraph. Now, Mariam, you're asking, not Mariam, who was it? Wait. Bisma. So Bisma, you were asking to answer one specific question for this one. Now, Beta, you have to find another word that means ancient. Ancient means old, right? Simple word. Culture, Miss Sadaf, do you know another word that could be cultures, ancient cultures, my cultures? Yeah. So Missy Sadaf was too late. She didn't even answer. She's
Sorry.
See,
So,
she's not that good at English. Mariam, you have to replace, yeah. So traditions and customs.
yes, customs. Yes, that's a good one.
Way of life. Thank you, Anam. Miss Sadaf, too late. Sorry, the girls are smarter than you.
They are much smarter.
See, so you will get the 2 marks. I wrote old. You can even write bygone, past, early, from a, even phrases like from a long time
Heritage,
ago,
yes, heritage.
right? And then you've got words like customs, traditions, ancient cultures. Ideally, the word would be civilizations. All of these work. Okay.
It
So
also
the
says, Miss
second,
Bushra, they'll give you credit for explaining the whole phrase.
no, credit alternatives explaining the whole phrase.
Explaining. Okay, got
So
it.
if the words are not here, but they mean, so there's so many other synonyms of old, right? That can be put in here, right? So if it's not listed, but it's correct, you will be given the mark. Okay. The same way, range and freely. Okay, so range in this context means to move or to fly. Again, if you're not able to understand the context clearly, Go to the text, look for the phrase. The phrase is here. They were not able to range freely in the skies. So what are you doing in the skies? You're flying around, right? So that would give you some context and you'll easily be able to, put in a word. And then freely means without restraint. So for each of the words, look for a synonym. It can be a group of words, it can be a singular word, it can be either one. People just somehow mess them up. Why might humans not want to fly on an airplane in the 21st century? Not want to fly. Normally, these questions, so they will give you a very specific, like they want a negative word from paragraph 5. This word not is not anywhere in this paragraph, right? So I'm just going to make it bigger, right? And it says good things about modern travel. It talks about comfort. It talks about entertainment. It talks about, long haul flights being very comfortable. It's fast. So these are all good things. Can we write these good things? No. Why? Because we have 3 marks. We need 3 points, right? But we need to find 3 reasons why you would not want modern transport. If perhaps the least interesting for those who enjoy watching the route. Many people will sacrifice environmental concerns and the high costs. So the 3 reasons why people may not want to travel by airplanes is 1, it's not fun for people who enjoy watching the route. 1 mark here, right? People have environmental concerns. 2nd, and the high cost. 3rd. So these questions, they're tricky because the answers are there, but the question is phrased in a way it may take time for students to sort of kind of, make that connection. Yes, Shahram, classical civilization is absolutely perfect. The word classical you can easily put in for old or ancient, right? Move openly. Openly cannot be correct because freely you're talking about
Maybe unhindered.
unhindered. Yeah, openly, no, Bisma, I would not give you the mark for that one. Mariam, here the thing is you cannot say the passengers have to be seated for a long time because the correlating point here, Shahram, beta, I love your question. The fact that you're saying that you cannot add your own. No, beta, this is a comprehension. It clearly says read paragraph 5. So you have to base it on the text. So Mariam, to answer your question, we cannot say long haul flights, right? Because if they don't enjoy the long haul flights and they have to be seated for many hours, the only other modes of transportation, you see, the question is specifically asking about airplanes and flying. So if Mariam, I want you to answer in the text, if you don't fly to Lahore, if you fly to Lahore, the flight takes you there in 1.5 hours. The only other alternative is sitting in a car or a bus. You'll be sitting for longer. Do you understand? So that point would be invalid here. If you don't like sitting for long periods of time, then you would probably want to fly on an airplane rather than go by car or any other modes of transport. Bisma, just write the points down, right? Again, we go back to the answer key for clarity. The answer key is just asking you to predominantly in your own words. The only thing, oh, you're right. Bisma, you're right. It says it over here. They may not wish to sit for long periods. My goodness, I marked this wrong for my students. I find this kind of incorrect though, because it's talking about comfort and it's talking about being seated for many hours. And my logic was it's talking about flying on airplanes. So, okay, fine, makes sense. People won't want to fly because of long haul flights. Musadaf, what do you think? I explained this to my students earlier as well, saying that this is not correct because it's asking about airplanes and flying.
Yes.
Hannah, so the alternative way, if you don't enjoy sitting for long periods and you don't travel at all, how can you travel in a car or a bus?
True that. I mean, there's no clarity to it here. If I don't enjoy being seated for a long period of time, I'm not going to enjoy a road trip or I'm not going
Yeah,
to enjoy a train ride. So there's no clarity over here,
I know
specifically
because
for
it's
flying on an airplane. I
yeah,
think
it's
the word
specific.
aeroplane here is the takeaway. Like, what specifically is the difference when I
Or maybe actually, maybe it would be people who find it uncomfortable on long haul
uncomfortable? Maybe
flights.
yes,
Then yes, that
but
makes
then
sense.
again,
But
airplanes are supposed to offer more comfort than a car or a train, right?
then in a car you can take stops,
Maybe
more frequent stops.
again,
Okay, so yeah. I think
despite,
by that logic it makes sense. So I stand corrected. My poor kids, I scolded them for writing this down in school. I need to apologize to them.
but
So
again, if
yeah,
you see, Miss Busha, the other 3 points that you did discuss are right there, right?
yeah, they're right here.
So again, the 3 points are definitely there. If a student does write the one that we're not too sure about, you and I, good for them. If they don't, they're still safe with the other 3 points, aren't they?
Yeah, exactly. But the thing is, folks, all of you who are coming up with your own points, you can't come up with your own points, right? So I stand corrected for this one because I genuinely thought that was not the answer. But it doesn't say anything about sickness, fear of flying, nothing. You have to base it on this section. All right? You have to base it on this section. Mariam, if you write more than 3 points, they will only give you marks for 3 points, right? So the way that they do it is they will look for 3 correct points and they will write mark it. But beta, if you find suppose 5 points and you write all five of them, that doesn't mean that they're going to, sometimes when you write too much, they will minus your marks or not give you the mark because the problem is that they will think that you don't understand the question. So make sure that you answer predominantly in your own words. Don't copy straight from the text. You've got 3 lines. Keep that as a, because I've seen in this question, in some of the candidate responses they published earlier, and in one of the marking workshops that I attended, the examiner, the child had written 5 points in this question, right? 3 of them were correct, but the last 2 weren't. The examiner gave 2 marks to that child and deducted 1 mark, which was very odd because normally they mark positively. And they said that we would do this because the child has shown that they may or may not understand exactly what the question is asking. I was very surprised at that. So since then, I've encouraged my students to always just write 3, maximum 4 points. So you can take the risk with 4 points, but don't write more than that. Okay? Because their policy again can change. It depends. If it seems like you haven't really understood the question, then they will do that. Now we come to this summary. The summary text is text B. If you noticed, all the texts are always sort of connected. So if this one is about actual flying, the history of flying, this is also about people who are flying, passengers on an airplane. And text C will also kind of be airport related. All right. So they're more or less the same. Text B is always a little more, is a writing style that is more discursive in nature. So text A is always something that is more informative in nature, right? Something more like like they just report facts. There's more like like not autobiographical, sorry, encyclopedia. It's more like encyclopedias, they've listed facts. The text B passage is always more discursive in nature. What I mean by discursive, it's more like an article, sounds like a blog. Sometimes they even tell you if it's an article. So there can also be like more of a personal touch to it because there's an article in it, right? There's more personal pronouns, there's a more of a personal experience, but you have to be careful. So this text is, if you noticed, written by a flight attendant about things that passengers do that are inconsiderate or unsafe. The question says, how should passengers on an airplane act to ensure safety and comfort of everyone? Now, your key things that you need to find points for are safety and comfort. You have to use continuous writing, which means write in a paragraph. Use your own words as far as possible. Do not write more than 120 words. Do not write more than 120 words. Now, for this section, you have around 25 minutes, right? Because if you notice, the first question is actually pretty quick. The points were easy to find. The text was short. It was an easier read. I want you to spend more time on this question because you have several things that you need to do. One, read the question very carefully. Think about what your rubric is. So safety and comfort, right? And this is basically based on the passenger's actions, not the flight attendant's actions, the passenger's actions. Here, this passage is about what passengers do, which is inconsiderate or unsafe. So the passage is opposite to what the question is asking, and they do this a lot. What you need to do is find things that they do which are inconsiderate and unsafe. And then what do? You have to kind of write the opposite. So if, for example, if it says that they expect us to load their heavy bags into the overhead stowage. So what should passengers not do? How should they act? They should not have heavy bags for their overhead stowage, and their bags should be heavy enough that they can lift it themselves and not ask the flight attendant to do so, right? If you have heavy baggage, then you should, for the safety and comfort of everyone, put it in the cargo area. Then something like it says the call bell is intended to alert the crew of an emergency when a passenger takes ill, for example. Some passengers use this when they want us to bring them drinks or blankets. So what can you say? You say use the call bell in times of emergency only, right? Not for drinks or blankets. Okay? Make sure the aisle is not congested. If you want something from the staff, you can walk and make these requests. All right, so these are things that you can do to make it comfortable for the flight attendants, safety, all of these things. So things like you may enjoy loud music, others don't. You will find 3 earphones stored in the back of the seat directly in front of you. They are yours to keep. So you can say use earphones to listen to music and not disturb other people while they're sleeping. There's a lot of points that you will be able to find. What I want you to remember is, sorry, it's up here. In question 1, part F, they are assessing you for various things. Your reading mark is out of 10, but they are assessing you for reading for explicit ideas and implicit ideas and for selecting specific information. What does this mean? So you need to find points that are very obvious in the text. So some points that are obviously in the text are use the free earphones. This was an obvious thing. What was not obvious was this point, that don't carry heavy bags on. So basically finding the opposite. So you can say that, carry light bags and don't ask the flight attendants to put them in the overhead stowage, right? That would be an implied idea. All right. So you need to make sure, as a rule of thumb, what I tell my students is, because it doesn't tell you about the number of points, it says words, 120 words. And trust me, beta, they will deduct marks if you write more than 120 words. Right? We've been taught as examiners as well multiple times, read 120 words and put a slash in front of it, which means that you cannot, under any circumstances, credit any content beyond 120 points. All right. So if any of your points or any of the content points that you find, you write them after 120 words, you will not, that will not be considered in your reading mark. Out of 10, you will not get marks for those points. All right. So you need to make sure that you have at least 10 points. Because remember, you have to write 120 words. Being under is okay, but you cannot go over. 10 points. Ideally, just as you find the points, start underlining them and listing them. But don't you know, for example, as I was reading, I was highlighting things. That is exactly how I want you to read it. Read it once, start highlighting things, and the second time, read it again to make sure you found as many points as possible. After you've highlighted your points here, I recommend that you use the additional sheets. So you've got additional sheets at the end here, right? Just use it for brainstorming and list your points here, right? Write down all your points, write the specific point. Do not write entire sentences. And then use this additional page to write your actual summary. Where did it go? All right. Some students, because you've got so much space here, they use the second page and write the points here at the end. That's also fine. You want to write it first over here, that's also fine, because it's not going to take you that much space. You've got enough space here. Write the points out because this will help you to be very specific in selecting your information. Okay, so let me read a couple of questions.